Hey guys, sorry I haven't been making videos. I haven't really been feeling too well. I think I might have mercury poisoning. There's gonna be someone in the comments who's like had mercury poisoning or something, and they'll be like, don't even joke, lad. Oh, you wanted to know what's under this? Oh no, this isn't interesting. Actually, you know what, let me get that out of the way for you. There we go. I assure you this motherboard is much more interesting. So what is this? It's a socket 462/socket A motherboard, and one of the more interesting ones, well, it says right there on the box, FSB 400. Now when it comes to socket 462 motherboards, there's I think only 3 chipset manufacturers that ended up doing FSB 400. There's VIA, there's of course NVIDIA with the infamous NF2 Ultra, and I think SIS even had a go at it too. If you guys might remember from a couple of years ago, I made this video where I actually built the socket A system that I used in the latter half of my childhood, the one my uncle gave me. And I was using an Athlon XP 3200 Plus in it, and it was kind of working until it stopped working. And anyways, I've been content with that system for a while, pulling it out for various reasons and whatnot, but seeing as socket A is... What? Dude, what are you doing? Girl, please. I need that. Stop! What the fuck are you doing? Okay, well I don't know where I was at with all this, but basically the TLDR is I have wanted to find a home for my Athlon XP 3200 Plus for like over 2 years now. And anytime I find an FSB 400 board, it's either broken or I got trolled and it's just the NF2, not the NF2 Ultra. So yeah, despite being happy with the little system that I built a few years ago, I have wanted to make something just a little bit more. You know, that's how it is with this stuff, right? You're like, oh, I'm happy with this, and you use it for a while, and you're like, but I could go a little bit better. And yeah, my searches have been very unsuccessful, as I mentioned, but that possibly comes to an end today with this. Also, can we just take a moment to appreciate that the idiot that sold this, okay, well he's not an idiot because he gave me a good deal, but the individual who sold me this just shipped it exactly as you see it right here. He stuck a shipping label on here, you can kind of see where I ripped it off right there, and just sent it like that. Awesome. That's really cool. That was well worth the $32 that I paid for shipping. It really shows. Anyway, as you can tell, this board has never been used. Like, we have the driver CD here, which I'll probably put into a better thingamajiggy, like one of those paper sleeves. We have the motherboard manual here. Also, can we just take a moment to appreciate... Hold on. Look at this crusty image that they put on the box. Like, look at this. Look at how crusty this is. And like, I assume that's like a mother and her daughter or something. Like, what do these two possibly have in relation to a KT600 motherboard? Are they happy that like they finally have a home for their Athlon XP 3200 Plus? Because I'm not gonna lie, if this works, I'm gonna hit that pose with my cat. Like, we're gonna be real happy. At least I'll be happy. My cat will probably continue to chew on cables. Anyways, we got the I/O shield here, you know, standard stuff. Actually never been used, which is pretty funny. I think this is a slightly non-standard layout. I could be wrong though, but it doesn't look kind of traditional, so that's good that that was included. Obviously you got your PATA cables. Somebody made fun of me for calling it PATA one time. It's called PATA. It's not IDE. That's the standard or whatever. PATA is the actual name of this stuff. And obviously when we take this cardboard off and this packaging, look at this. There's the board. Look at that. Brand new. We got the Ukrainian patriotism blue and yellow socket A board. And somehow the caps all seem to be okay on it. Like, look at this. Now, who knows? Cap sitting for a while apparently is not a good thing, which I guess kind of makes sense. But physically, they seem alright. So, yeah. This has never been used. And look, it even has the little CPU header there. So you don't need one of those, like, I think 5-volt rail super heavy or PSUs, you know what I mean, where they have like the crazy amount of amperage on the 5-volt rail or something. 12 volts right there. Yeah, this is the motherboard. Exciting, I know. Anyways, by the way, if I'm cutting out a lot, I apologize. I mean, like, cutting out as in the video was kind of jumping around. Unfortunately, my camera is dying and the SD card in it is dying too. And while the camera could theoretically be replaced with something used, the SD card in this economy, yeah. So honestly, that's part of the reason why I haven't really been making a lot of stuff, setting aside time constraints as well. But hopefully this video goes pretty smoothly. So what do you say? Let's go put this thing together and see what it does. This is my case of choice. This is what the KT400 was living in, and yeah, we're just gonna put this one in here. I'm not gonna go ahead and assemble it all on camera because I can't be bothered to do that, and because this thing will probably stop recording like 30 seconds into doing that. So jump cut to it being fully assembled and ready to go through the magic of editing. And just like that, it's all put together. Almost all put together. Before we talk about things, I'm dying to see if it works. So yeah. Alright, I'm gonna turn it on. I'm gonna see what happens. Alrighty. Oh, I heard a post beep. That's a good sign. What? It just rebooted. No video signal. Well, it's beeping. Oh, whoa! Okay, I don't know why it's rebooting. This is weird. Can I get into the BIOS? Something bad is going on. Of course. Okay, well, let me take a look at this and try to figure out what's going on. Alrighty, I'm pleased to announce that we are in. It works. Everything is good so far. Don't know what that was all about with the constant rebooting. I put in a different power supply and it just works. Put the old power supply back in and it just works. So that's cool. So what exactly is going on in here? Well, I did have to change a couple things. For starters, the memory. I wanted to go with this OCZ stuff that I have here, which is DDR400 cast latency 2, but unfortunately you can't adjust the cast latency settings for the memory in this BIOS. Again, cheap garbage. I mean, it's not total garbage, but it's still cheap nonsense at the end of the day. So I ended up just taking two regular PC3200 1 gig sticks, so it actually gives me more memory, just not quite as fast or as tight with the memory timings, but it is what it is, whatever. The sound card and the USB card are out of the KT400 system, and for the GPU, it is going to have a GeForce FX 5900 XT, which is right here. However, for this video, we're not going to be putting this card in. I have a little bit more of a treat because I am curious, for the sake of this video, just what kind of performance we can expect out of a really cheap, low-end KT600 board. So for this job, I think I might just pull out the 9800 XT. We'll see. Can I help you? What's wrong? Kibby. 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 I am a little worried because the power supply is only 330 watts that the video card is not going to take that very well. But we'll see. Anyway, we have video card and now we have hard drive. I will see you guys once I have an OS installed on this thing and we're ready to test some games and see how good or not good this is. Also, I did replace the CMOS battery, by the way. I just have a slight inkling that the original CMOS battery is no good, so we are back. It is the next day, and yeah, this thing has caused me a lot of headache, but I'm proud to report that we have memory working at 200 megahertz, so 1-to-1 FSB and DRAM, running at the rated timings for the memory as well. But what exactly happened? Well, I was having issues getting memory to work, more specifically this kind of memory. This is kind of a bad example because this is a 333 megahertz stick, which is not what I was trying to put in there. But it was this kind of, I've learned that it's called dual rank memory. It's like double-sided, there's chips on each side, yeah. If you put one of these in this motherboard, it'll go FSB 1-to-1, it'll run at 200 megahertz, assuming it's rated for 200 megahertz. If you put two of these dual rank sticks in, filling both the slots, it doesn't want to run FSB 1-to-1. Instead, it runs FSB 333 for the RAM. I don't know why. But if you were to run single rank memory, which is what this is, and I guess technically actually has some performance implications as well, as in this stuff is technically not as fast, maybe, but like barely. If you run 2 of these, you do achieve FSB 1-to-1, like what you're seeing right now, and your memory will run at the rated 200 megahertz. And so this was my issue. I don't know why this is the case. Again, if you run single dual rank, you get FSB 400 or FSB 200, but if you run 2 dual ranks, you don't. Now this is only an issue if you're running an Athlon XP 3200 Plus, by the way. If you're doing any other Athlon XP motherboard, this shouldn't be an issue. This is just for 3200 Plus. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and blame this on this miserable garbage VIA chipset, because I hate VIA chipsets and they suck. But it's figured out, and we're ready to test some games now, because the RAM is actually dialed in properly. So yeah, I really wish I could have used my fancy Corsair Platinum sticks, or not Corsair, whatever they are, OCZ Platinum memory sticks with like CAS latency 2 and all that. But since I can't dial in the timings, and because dual rank doesn't work very nicely on this board, we are stuck using these random G-Skill sticks that are single rank but still get me to 1 gigabyte with decent timings. So yeah, with that said, let us check out some games. So actually we're going to start with a synthetic test, which is Cinebench 2003, and thanks to some friends over at the Pixel Talk server, we have some figures to look at here. So basically you can see all of our CPUs are just kind of chilling around the same number. Now granted, they're all clocked at 2.19 or I guess 2.2 gigahertz. But they are different CPUs with different OCs and stuff, and also one of them is an NF2U motherboard. But still, I don't really know much about Cinebench, but the fact that they're all kind of hanging out together just tells me that it's probably more focused on the actual core clock speed. But either way, it goes to show you that the CPU is, at least in this test, able to work its best from what I can gather. Next up was 3D Mark 2001, which is actually, from what I understand, a pretty CPU-bound benchmark. So to see like 16K is actually a really good score, and that's about what I expected for this setup. So yeah, that's pretty good so far, actually. 3D Mark 2003 gave us a low 6000 score, which I think is pretty reasonable given that this is all quite literally hardware that is of the time. That said, I couldn't tell you if it leaves a little bit more to be desired or not. I'm not too familiar with 3D Mark scoring and whatnot, but either way, the tests themselves actually ran pretty decently, so I would say that it's probably about what you would expect, more or less, for something that's synthetic. The Unreal Tournament 2003 benchmark tool showed us some really good results, and I can tell you off the top of my head that the bot match result is about 10 frames per second higher than higher end Northwood P4s would score, which they're usually about 65 to about 67 FPS. So yeah, I mean, this is really, really good to see for Unreal Tournament. This is a game that, you know, if you want to play single player, you absolutely can, but it's going to be very, very CPU intensive with all the bots. So yeah, very, very good results here. Next up we have Half-Life 2, and I ended up choosing the start of the coast level where basically you're in the Jeep and there's the crane and everything, because I find this is a really, really taxing area for some reason. And not a lot of people actually show this area, but if you look here, the numbers, like the minimum is not great. The average is alright, but the max is pretty good. And I just want to reiterate that this area is probably a absolute worst case for this game. When I was playing through other parts of the game, it was a solid like 30, 40 FPS most of the time, which is really, really good. I mean, that's very, very playable, and the settings were all cranked up basically all the way anyways, so honestly, very playable experience here. Next up we have Juiced, which I think is actually a less intensive game than Half-Life 2, but still an intensive game nonetheless. And this one, I should also mention, does have a frame rate cap at 60 FPS. There's no way to turn it off without patching the executable. So we are going to just see a max of 61 here. But it's good to look at the min, and the minimum we saw was 37, which is great. And again, the settings were all cranked up here. Average of 47, so most of the time it was probably sitting at about 47 or capped at 45, something like that, but it felt very good, and there really wasn't that many dips that I like noticed visually. So yeah, this is also very, very playable. We're going to end with Need for Speed Most Wanted. I wanted to get something more intense like Fallout 3 or Fear, but neither of them were cooperating with me and I didn't have the time to keep messing with it, so I settled for this. But I was incredibly surprised with the performance of this game. This is at every single setting cranked 800 by 600. We saw a minimum of 32, a max of 62, and an average of 47. So this is basically very close to the same frame rates we were seeing in Juiced, but with way better graphics. This game ran so well, but there is a caveat here, and that is that, at least for whatever reason with the 9800 XT, we could not enable shadows. So I suspect this is likely why we were getting very, very good performance, and also the fact that we were running at 800 by 600, but still, it looked really, really good, and it ran great. There were slightly noticeable dips, but again, nothing under 30, so most would probably consider that very, very playable. I also just want to quickly mention that I ran Left 4 Dead, and we're not talking like the OG release of Left 4 Dead. We're talking like a modern release of Left 4 Dead on this computer over a USB 2.0 connection or key, whatever you want to call it. And with a mix of medium and low settings at 800 by 600, I was actually getting anywhere from 30 to 50 FPS with not too much going on, and about 20 to 25 when there was a giant horde. And you got to keep in mind, this is 1 gig of RAM, this is like an Athlon XP and whatnot. I'm amazed that it ran as well as it did for a game that, you know, has been around for quite a while and has had all these patches applied to it. It's kind of incredible. It really did impress me. So, final verdict on this thing. What do I think? Well, it's actually surprisingly decent. Perhaps it was because I went into this with very low expectations, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I do think that the 3200 Plus does pair pretty nicely with the KT600. Again, unfortunate that I don't have an NF2 Ultra to test and compare against, but I'm sure it keeps up just fine. Obviously, there will be more performance out of the NF2 Ultra, especially with dual channel memory, but regardless, you know, aside from some of the minor quirks like the memory situation, for example, which is not the first time I've ran into a memory weird situation with a VIA chipset board. For how cheap this thing was, it was absolutely worth every dollar. It is a perfectly acceptable and like reasonably fast Athlon XP system. So if you're looking to make use of a Athlon XP 3200 Plus, but you just can't seem to get a hold of an NF2 Ultra board, this is a great option, really. That said, if you have literally any other Athlon XP CPU, I would probably recommend looking for just regular Enforce 2s, because I've come across at least 3 or 4 in the past year and a bit, and I haven't really paid too much for any of them. Those boards are probably still going to perform better than a KT600, not like insanely better, but you're going to get dual channel memory, and you know, it's still a better chipset than the VIA chipset. So, you know, if you're looking to do anything else, probably I would go with an Enforce 2. It doesn't have to be an Ultra, but if you're trying to do an Athlon XP 3200 Plus build on a budget, these crappy, like, no-name, bottom-of-the-barrel KT600 boards, they will serve you well as long as you're not looking to OC. So yeah, as I said, I'm pleasantly surprised with this system. I'm really glad I picked up this board, and yeah, here's to more messing around with the 3200 Plus that finally has a home after all these years. Bit of a weird video, I know, but hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully I can get to doing more videos, because I still have like several other things I want to do that I even teased in the last video that I made that I just haven't started on. So yeah. But either way, I will see you guys around. Bye for now. Me when I finally have a home for my Athlon XP 3200 Plus CPU.